Why, hello there and welcome back. As you may or may not know, I have a deep obsession with none other than Whitby Jet. The question I am asked on a regular basis is, what is Whitby Jet? And furthermore, what is Whitby? Because of this, I decided to dedicate an episode specifically for Whitby Jet and all of its delightful history. So without further ado, let's get ready while I tell you of its legendary history. Whitby is a coastal town located within the north of England, not too far above Scarborough. Evidence of the town's existence goes all the way back to 656 AD. Today, tourists from all over the world come to pay the town a visit, but what many of them don't know is Whitby isn't the town's proper name. Its original name was Stronsheath, meaning Lighthouse Bay, named by, I believe, the then Christian Saxon king of the Northumbria. This was all changed in 867 AD when Vikings arrived in town and began to wreak their havoc. They pillaged and ravaged and in the process destroyed much of Whitby. Their force was so mighty that the town itself still bears the marks of their reign, including one of the monasteries known as Whitby Abbey, commonly known as Whitby's most famous and memorable attraction. In addition, Whitby and its monastery later faced a second wave of damage during the war by the Germans. For what was left of the monastery from the Viking attack, the British used for shelter. Even though the monastery has been consumed by a great deal of harm over the years, you can still find what's left of it withstanding mighty to this day. Amidst the Viking chaos, they decided to rename the town the name we all know and love as Whitby. Whitby meaning white settlement in Old Norse. Random fact for you all, because the Vikings had such a strong impact on the town, to this day locals are still discovering Viking artefacts washing up on the beach. Now, with how malevolent the Vikings' actions were, you'd think that England would like to forget about such a time, but no, we're English. As part of English culture, we love and embrace all of our history. We can't just cut out things from the past just because some may deem them as unpleasant. Otherwise, there would be no history, no culture, anywhere in the world for that matter. To have both history and culture is to welcome everything from the past, both jolly and woeful. So instead of being upset over times like these, we like to think of not when times were bad, but rather how we overcame them. So that's why we only ever refer to this town as Whitby, never its original name. On a rather positive note, all thanks to the Vikings, we share a lot of Viking traditions, celebrations and customs in England, but I shall speak of that more in a moment. Not only did Whitby gain its fame from the Vikings, but from Dracula. Yes, you heard that right. Long ago, the famous Irish author known as Bram Stoker came to said town for his holiday. During his stay, he was fascinated by the town, which at the time was known for being a grand fishing town. Even now, if you head over there, you can see sailors returning to shore with large crates filled to the brim with fish. Being so inspired by the town, he went on to create one of his most memorable books, Dracula. Fast forward to the more recent of years, because Dracula and vampires in general tend to be associated with Goths, this made many Gothic people want to pay the town a visit. This then grew on to an event we celebrate now called the Whitby Goth Weekend, where Goths from all over the world come to Whitby for 3 days to celebrate anything and everything in Goth culture. Skipping ahead to the Victorian era, if you aren't familiar with English history, this period in time was named after our former ruler of Great Britain, Queen Victoria. This period lasted between 1837 to 1901. During her time, Victoria had a lover by the name Prince Albert, whom of which she madly adored. She loved him so very much that she had romantic paintings of herself commissioned just for him. Over time we have indeed found said portraits, and I'd like to note I've seen many people overseas, especially in the West, talk highly of her beauty. But something that I want you all to know is, back then as an artist, your job was to do your very best to make your subject look the most beautiful. So even though editing photographs wasn't really a thing back then, painting someone with a more appealing appearance was common, especially with those of royal status. Otherwise, you would most likely head towards the guillotine. So not all old portraits you see in England are a realistic representation of what said person looked like, and as a matter of fact, few photographs of Queen Victoria do exist, so you may see for yourself the comparison of what she truly looked like. But alas for poor Victoria, Albert, her love, passed on in 1861. Mortified by this tragedy, she needed something black to wear to formally show her respects for her love. Out of all the gemstones to choose from, she requested to wear specifically none other than Whitby Jet to mourn him. Much like how we have people who obsess over celebrities today, back then people, but not all of course, obsessed over royals, so when she wore Whitby Jet, the public had to have Whitby Jet. There was such a wave of demands for it that for a period of time the harvesting of Whitby Jet grew slim. Back then the jet was collected in special mines, whereas the jet we have today comes from the beach. This is because Whitby was and is a fishing town, as I stated earlier. That means there are multiple sunken shipwrecks all around the area, so as our ships lay at the bottom of the ocean, their wood goes through a crystallization process thanks to the water, so every now and then bits and pieces from these shipwrecks will make their way onto Whitby's beach, where it is collected by locals and turned into the beautiful Whitby Jet jewellery and trinkets we have today. So the next time you purchase or come across a piece of Whitby Jet, just remember how it was once a part of a ship that is hundreds of years old. The only downside with this is, as the news of Whitby Jet washing up on our beaches grew, tourists like to come over in hordes and raid our beaches in search of our precious jet. So just like the Victorian period, finding jet makes most difficult, which is why the price of it has skyrocketed over the years. But people's obsession with Whitby Jet doesn't end with just the Victorians or the modern tourists. The Vikings also found themselves in love with it, but it doesn't end there either. If I went into detail about how many people and cultures found their love for our jet, it would take a whole day, so let me sum it up off the top of my head, those who loved it most. We have, but not limited to, the Victorians, the Vikings, Christians, pagans, Celts and the Romans. They all adored this beautiful gemstone, and let me furthermore tell you why they adored it so. As I just said, Victorians used it to mourn those who had passed on. They also believed if you were to polish a piece and peer into it, you could see hidden creatures lurking around, or you would be able to tell the future. This is quite similar to what the ancient Mexicans did with their obsidian scrying mirrors. The Vikings used it mostly as a protection stone and would carve their protecting rune symbols into it, which would then be worn as a necklace. Furthermore, they would bury a piece with each grave as they believed the stone would continue to protect their bodies in the afterlife to deter any and all evil trying to harm their graves. This practice was common amongst Victorians, and on the occasion they would request to have the jet carved into Medusa's face and placed on the headstone. This was due to the influence of back when the Romans invaded Great Britain. The Romans, just like the Vikings, thought of jet to be a grand protection stone. In case you don't already know this, in Rome it was believed that the symbol or carving of Medusa's head, when placed, would deter evil. So, as I stated a moment ago, the Victorians had the bright idea to place a Whitby Jet carving of Medusa's head on a tombstone so both the jet and Medusa could work together to enhance their protection for the grave. It is also believed in English culture that if something evil were to try and cause you harm, that the jet would take the hit for you, thus would shatter into pieces. So if you own a piece of jet that one day breaks, please don't be sad, instead make sure to celebrate, as that just shows that it did its job at keeping you safe from harm. Lastly, we have the Christians, pagans and the Celts. Both the pagans and Celts thought of jet as more of a tool to aid towards their spells. They used it often in their craft and noted how it could also be used to keep many ailments at bay while promoting good health. The Christians also believed that it carried great healing benefits while banishing evil. Because of how the pagans and Celts used it often in their craft, some people afraid that Whitby Jet was a bad thing to have within one's possession, believing that owning a piece would cause bad witchcraft upon the wearer. As someone who has been both studying and collecting this beautiful stone since I was 18 years old, I can confirm that these negative rumours are entirely untrue, in a way. Whitby Jet is actually neutral. It is not good nor evil, but to determine its true nature depends on the wearer. It actually feeds off its environment. So if you were, let's say, a not so nice person and were unkind towards others, misfortune would come your way. Whereas if you were someone who believes in the positive and were to lead your life with good intentions, only good fortune shall cross your path. That's how it works. Which is why, and take this with a warning, it is important that you do not wear or own second-hand jet, because if someone whom of which is unkind and were to own it before you, the gemstone will have absorbed this, so when you wear it, you would in a way be taking on the previous owner's bad karma. So in short, the rules of Whitby Jet are: think positive, lead only with good intentions, and only good fortune shall cross thy path. I think my makeup is just about finished, so let me pop on some earrings and better attire, and I'll see you all in but a moment. And there you have it. That is the history of Whitby and its beautiful Whitby Jet. Hopefully you can all understand as to why I adore wearing it so. It seemed to have reached the end of the episode. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed. Check out my Buy Me a Coffee if you wish to further help support the Grave Raider. Check out my Instagram for more. Thank you once again for joining me, and ta-ta for now.